Anyway, Cory Brewer is standing by from Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty. Cory is going to be part of a panel discussion coming up next week at the Ingleside Hotel. This is in Pewaukee. Everybody's been there. Well, not everybody, but if you've been to a Republican event, you've probably been to this hotel. It's on the one on Gulf Road in Pewaukee, right off the interstate. Really easy to get to. It's called Stolen Innocence, and it will be taking place on January 26th. If you search Stolen Innocence in the Eventbrite search bar, you'll be able to find this event very easily. It is $10, and it features a number of people who have become victims of gender ideology, be they school counselors or children or parents. And Cory Brewer at the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty is part of this panel. Cory, welcome to the show.
Hi, Vicki. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. I'm looking, and I just went through Will's press releases from 2022 on. There are no fewer than 8 cases that Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty has brought forward. One involves a school counselor who is going to, Melissa Darling, who is going to be at the panel, who simply thought it was okay to state that men are men and women are women. You had a mom whose daughter was being induced into gender transition in Kettle Moraine. You've had the Eau Claire School District circumvent parental consent and knowledge as school counselors and teachers worked to help children gender transition. Here's a young boy who almost faced a Title IX investigation because he refused to use pronouns. A boy, a student. And it goes on like this. There are multiple cases just in Wisconsin.
Right. Thank you for that summary. I think it highlights really well some of the work that we've been doing here to try to empower parents and also get courts to recognize parents' constitutional rights. Parents do have a constitutional right to direct the upbringing and education of their children. And with a lot of the cases that you mentioned, some of these cases are ongoing still. Kettle Moraine, Eau Claire, Madison School District, parents are not engaged. They're being viewed as adversaries rather than partners. And I think part of the reason why Will wants to participate in the panel next week is to help parents with what can they do. We've been hearing from parents all around the state frequently, and they have concerns related to what their children are being taught and exposed to in schools. And we're really hoping to be part of that conversation to share concrete options and resources for how can they make a change, how can they create a difference at the local district level.
Absolutely. And lawsuits, unfortunately, are part of that equation. I was talking about an article that I seen yesterday about there was sort of, a multi-pronged approach in how to defeat what has become an insidious ideology. It is purely designed to upend the law. It is to upend civil order. It's lawsuits. It's people who had been induced into gender transition, who have detransitioned coming forward. Chloe Cole is one of those people, and she will be on the panel. She was, I believe, 12 or 14 years old when she was first encouraged into declaring herself the opposite gender. She went all the way as far as to have a double mastectomy, and then realized she made a mistake. And so it's stories like hers. It's lawsuits like Will's. And then it's also giving parents access to what their rights are so that if a school district is violating those rights, there is a very easy to articulate option, and easily, they're easily able to get legal advice because this is pretty cut and dry.
Right. Absolutely. And obviously, as you mentioned, a lot of the panelists that will be at the event have a unique, more of a firsthand experience that they'll share with the attendees. And we wanted to be involved at Will. We have created this project within the last year called Restoring American Education. So if folks want to check that out, it's at restoringamericaneducation.org. And that's designed to do kind of exactly what you said. What resources are out there that would actually empower me to enforce my rights, engage with my school district, create transparency at my school district? There's a lack of engagement, lack of transparency. parents, they've seen since the pandemic what's going on in their children's schools, and oftentimes they don't like it, and they want to know, well, what can I do? So Will is in the process of creating resources. We've created model policies. We've created kind of templates for parents to use to engage with their schools. We're also following the Title IX developments really closely because parents and schools, they all want to know, well, are these new Title IX regulations by the Biden administration, are those binding? What do schools have to do? What have courts said about this?
That's a good question, though. What is so far with regard to the changes to Title IX, which the Biden administration unilaterally made a decision to change? What should parents think about when it comes to that? We just had a kid in Kiel, Wisconsin, threatened with a Title IX investigation because he didn't want to use pronouns. He didn't want to call a girl a boy or a boy a girl or whatever it was. It wasn't done out of malice. Not that that matters. But what are their rights? What are parents' rights in this regard?
Yes, in the Kiel case, the middle school boys had a Title IX sexual harassment complaint brought against them, initiated by a school leader, their Title IX coordinator, for, quote, mispronouncing.
Wow, it's an adult did this to kids.
Right, and the investigation has since concluded. The boys have not been punished. Essentially, the school decided to end the investigation, which we're very happy about. But that was a really kind of compelling issue that just highlights what the Biden administration is doing with Title IX, the confusion it's creating, and it's really impacting First Amendment free speech rights as well. Right now, the Title IX regulations are only proposed regulations, so the law currently in effect is the same as it was when the Trump administration kind of updated those rules. So right now, the meaning of sex in Title IX is sex, as it has historically been understood to mean. However, the Biden administration is seeking to change that to include gender identity and sexual orientation. And a lot of people are kind of enforcing Title IX as if it already does. It's a little bit complicated, but we're trying to follow it really closely so that schools know what they're required to do, what the status of those proposed regulations is, and just create public resources on that topic as well.
Well, on Title IX, though, how can they compel speech?
Well, that would be where the preferred pronoun issue
right,
but
that's in violation of the First Amendment. If I can't say something, the First Amendment covers if you're going to force me to say something or deny me from saying something.
Right. Yeah. We our position in the Kiel case was that these boys cannot be compelled to use a student's preferred pronoun because students, even when they're in school, they have First Amendment free speech rights.
Which is what I guess my question more specifically was, why did this Title IX coordinator think she could compel speech without even an empowering piece of regulation? And even with that empowering piece of regulation, how does that regulation supersede the First Amendment?
I don't. That's a great question. I don't know. I think some administrations are enforcing Title IX as if it already includes the, sex means gender identity and sexual orientation. And I don't know what their position was there, but I think one of the pieces to it was that they were referring to it as sexual harassment for not using preferred pronouns. And like
Still.
I said, that case thankfully, resolved in a way that was beneficial to the boys. And it wasn't a lawsuit, that one. Thankfully, it never had to go that far.
On one last thing before we run out of time here is you have got schools that act without consent by parents. Eau Claire, Madison. For instance, a drag queen show that was offered up by the GSA organization at East High School in Madison, denying parents access to information if their children are being induced into gender transitioning while they're at school, etc. It seems like the default for a lot of these school districts is to wait till they get caught.
We've heard from other parents in other school districts that there are similar policies in place, and we're hopeful that our litigation in these cases will reinforce parents' rights and that schools will begin to see, hey, by keeping this information secret from parents and in some cases affirmatively deceiving parents when they're around, reverting back to using the child's biological name and pronouns, that is actually unlawful. These parents have rights, and we're hoping our litigation helps with that. We're also hoping that some of the model policies that we created help with that. Parents can, and they're not necessarily specific to Wisconsin, they can be implemented anywhere, but parents can go on our website. One of our example policies is related to gender identity, names and pronoun use in school. And any parent, if they would like to, can go on to that, give it to their school board and say, hey, would you consider maybe adopting a policy like this? We really think it would be more transparent, it would respect our rights, and really be good for the children ultimately.
And in a lot of cases, you are going to have to take over those school boards before you'll get a school board to agree to it. But still, it's worth the effort. Waukesha did it, and they had great success. Thank you, Cory Brewer. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.